Welcome back. Yes, we now have our guests who are joining us virtually. We have joining us this morning Professor Patrick Okase, who's of the Department of History and International Studies at the Prince Abubakar Audu University, Ayingba in Kogi State. Prof, thank you so much for joining us this morning on the program.
Thank you very much for having me, Maupe. Good morning.
Also joining us is Mr. Frank Uto, who is a policy researcher at the University of Central Oklahoma in the United States of America. He's an indigene of Yelwata and also a former principal special assistant to the Benue State Governor, serving from between 2019 to 2023. Mr. Frank Uto, thank you also for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good morning, Nigeria.
Well, let me start with you, Mr. Otor, because you are directly affected by the incidences that have now happened in Yelwata. Initially, we heard the number of people affected, the number of casualties, to be in the region of about 200 people. This morning, well, as of yesterday, the governor announced about 59 people. Saying that those are the numbers of people that they can confirm, and they include military personnel, a civil defense personnel who also fought to defend Yelwata against the attacks. This is some of the things that we have heard. Some people will say that when the initial crisis or when the initial incident occurred, that there would have been plenty of haze, but that some of it would have settled down now, and perhaps, there will be clarity on precisely what transpired. What have you heard truly transpired in your community on the night of the 14th?
Thank you very much. It is deeply regrettable that the number of casualties in Yelwata is grossly underreported. The last count, we know about 210 persons, and right now we're compiling these names. So it is heart-wrenching when you begin to hear people speak on the graves of those who have been killed in that form by these terrorists. And then you begin to underreport the numbers, the figures. What happened on that day was, and first of all, let me tell you that, sometimes when government officials talk, they talk about intelligence as if it is rocket science. We, the people, the common people, were the source of all this intelligence. And before that happened, we've gotten that intelligence and we passed it around. When these terrorists started gathering in the neighboring villages of Giza, in Ghana local government, and Kadelko, and of course, others were coming from Rukubi. We passed this information a day before it happened. And the night it happened, they came around 10 p.m. Let me tell you one truth. In the course of repelling these miscreants, these terrorists, 2 of them were killed. 1 was arrested. And he made a dying declaration, a confession before he died. He said 1, 2, 3, 4 savvy military personnel were part of them. And that is why they executed that monstrous butchery with military precision. They came from 4 different angles on that day. Their center of attraction was the primary school and the Catholic church, which was housing majority of the inhabitants. Many of our people don't sleep in their homes in the night. So they do move to the primary school and to the Catholic church, and like the charge remains is so, where the remains of many hundreds of people who were sleeping in the stores in the market. Many people may be wondering why there are a lot of people in stores. This is because every evening they leave their homes to the store to sleep, because their homes may be a little bit off the road. But the stores are directly facing the federal highway. That is the same highway that these terrorists operated for over 5 hours without engagement. Only the police, the federal highway, engaged them and they ran out of ammunition. So when they came that day, the epicenter of their concentration was the primary school. So a joint team of our boys and the police engaged them there, while 3 different groups went to the market, behind the market, that's the new market, and opposite the market, where they killed majority of what you saw. Up to today, we're still getting other places where there are charred remains. As of yesterday, we discovered a store that had about 37 charred remains. Okay, for a complete 3 hours, there was no intervention. Look at the security. Look at the Air Force base. We have Motodi. The Air Force base is there. They've not been responding to what's been happening. This is a base that is supposed to have drones, that is supposed to have like thermal imaging devices to operate in the night, or night Google vision cameras. But they have not done anything. And yesterday, in the course of the protest, they released some choppers to disperse the protesters. So we've been living in a Hobbesian state, where life has been brutish, has been short, and has been nasty. There's a total absence of government in Yerwata and in various states. In short, in the entirety of my council ward of News. Day before yesterday, over 300 people were killed in a community that housed about 3,000 people. That's about 10%. When you want to relate that to what happened in 911, where about 3,000 Americans, so 4,000 Americans were killed. Related to America, if you consider our population, it's like killing about 8 million Americans. Related to what happened in Israel on October 7th, where about 1,200 Israelis were killed, it's like 360,000 Israelis killed, going by their population. So in a community of about 3,000 people, and you're coming to kill more than 300 people, that's more than 10% of that. And when
you say 300 people, and I really, I think first it's important to say, our deepest condolences to the people of Yelwata, because, I mean, whatever happens in one part of Nigeria really should affect us all, and, people should be able to identify with the people of Yelwata. And I think that ideally, there should be no dispute over the figures. However, this is the situation that we have now found ourselves, where we now have to also question, the process of gathering these figures. What I want to know, and let me quickly go to our second guest while you ponder on this particular matter. Let me quickly go to Professor Okase, whom I'm sure, has been keeping tabs on what is happening in Benue, and also must have also seen the statements that have followed from the president and also from the governor as well. As someone who has, stayed with history and, of course, the implications internationally, what are your immediate assessment of what has transpired in Yelwata and in Benue in general? Prof, we can't hear you. Please kindly unmute, please.
Thank you, Maupa. Can you hear me now?
Clearly.
Okay, first and foremost, I would like to sympathize with the people of Benue, particularly the people of Yelwata, who lost loved ones. Maupa, I've not been able to sleep for 2 days. In fact, my 2 little daughters have been having nightmares since they watched or, heard the news of the killing of several people in Yelwata. When you see the pictures, the gory pictures of little children burnt, maimed, macheted, it becomes really worrisome. And it has been a problem for me since on Saturday when I received this news. Just this morning, I had to have a conversation with my little children to try and counsel them over the events. And so it is unfortunate that in the 21st century, we live in a country where on a daily basis, the headlines is that people have been killed and there is no response from the government. Let me tell you as a historian that even during the Civil War, during the Nigerian Civil War, there was no case or incidents where 200 people were killed in a day. Even in Ukraine and Russia, since the war started between Russia and Ukraine, I don't think they have lost 100 or 200 people in a day. This has been a recurring in Benue State, all that 17 or 2018 thereabout. The Benue State government carried out what was called of well over 70 persons that were, and life goes on. Apart from the people in that state that quite often are traumatized, sometimes as if nothing has really happened. People go on with their daily businesses and the next day it continues. And so that is what we have found, where we have found ourselves. Now, for a very long time, it would appear like my brother Otto said, that there is no government in Nigeria. We hear people talking about ungoverned spaces, and I've asked on a number of occasions, when we say ungoverned spaces, how do we mean? Do we borrow Western concepts, apply them, and now begin to apply them in our country? There is nothing like ungoverned spaces. We have a government in Nigeria. We have well over 774 local governments in Nigeria. We have members of the House of Reps. We have senators. We have councillors. We have 36 state governors, and we have a president of the republic. No space in Nigeria is ungoverned. And so if we are unable to provide security, which is the primary responsibility of government, it then means that there is failure of governance, not ungoverned spaces. And so you've noticed that it took the federal government well over 48 hours to even make a release on the Yelwata incidents. Even the Pope even spoke earlier than the federal government. And so it shows the extent to which we are less concerned about human lives. Elsewhere, when you lose a life, that country will remain at a standstill until action is taken. It is only in Nigeria that we lose lives.
My apologies.
And then
if you can hear me,
Prof. Talking about the number, some people will say, no, it's 59. Some people will say, no, it's 100. Talking about the number.
Well, Prof, if you can hear me, perhaps, the issue is whether or not we are even looking at the issue, the circumstances or consequences the way we ought to. Let me come to you, Mr. Utu. You've worked with the government of Benue State before. This is definitely, you've also spoken to it. This is definitely not the first time this is happening. And it is sad and painful that we have to come to this from time to time. As someone who has worked with the government of Benue State before, what are the issues that we are not addressing? There have been allegations of intercommunal clashes, armed criminal groups, and there are those who also alleging political dynamics, political differences, consequently politically motivated killings, if we can put it that way. What are the issues, Mr. Utu, that we are not addressing, particularly concerning Benue?
Thank you very much, Dad. This is a very simple issue. Political crises are completely different from these acts of terrorism. This issue started as these guys in their quest to grab more land started killing our people way back, like the Prof says, about 20 years ago. Before then, we had a very cordial relationship with the Fulani. I particularly, I have majority of Fulani friends when I was growing up, even more than my tribal guys, because I was born and raised in Jos. I schooled in the famous government college, Kefi, where I had a lot of Fulani friends, and I had my identity in Kefi. And in the course of our growing up, my maternal grandfather, who is a Second World War veteran, by him back from Makudi local government, who after coming back from Burma settled in an area called Moro in Moro is under Akwanga and Garaku local government, Kokona local government of Nasarawa State. In those days, anytime we go to my grandfather's home, There's a very popular Fulani man who comes around every time to park his bicycle and go on a journey. Sometimes he lasts for about six months before coming back. Every time he's coming back, he brings Pura and Nono for us. He brings Maishanu. You know, we had a very cordial relationship. But at a point, these people started needing more land. And so they felt that our land is more fertile for their cattle. And that is the genesis of the problem. Because in the early days, even when a Fulani man strayed his cattle into a thief man's farm, they settled that amicably and sometimes he pays compensation. So in the build-up to all this, and this is a build-up. And so sometime in 2015 and 2016, the people of Benue State say, look, for us to maintain a very cordial relationship with these people, many of these guys will come under the excuses of grazing and then perpetrate acts of terrorism. So let's enact for ourselves a law against open grazing. And so it is the totality of the people of Benue State that congregated and then enacted that law. It wasn't even an Otom's law. Otom only defended the law. He had a separate law before that, but he had to dance to the rhythm of the people of Benue State by accepting the law. So he defended that law, and that law has not been abrogated. So I wondered why we are still not enforcing that law.
So whose responsibility
right now,
is it, Mr. Otu? Just a second. Whose responsibility is it? My apologies. Whose responsibility is it? Is it to enforce that law? That we have a state government and we have communities right there who can also maybe one way or the other be able to push back. Who should be enforcing this law? Shouldn't it be the Benue State government? Is the government of Benue State incapable?
Jeff, first of all, we're dealing with land here. The entire land of Benue State belongs to the people of Benue State. It is only vested in the governor by law to hold in trust for the people. And of course, the local government chairman too, as the case may be in local communities. So it does not belong to any outsider. And so when we get ourselves that law, a lot of Tea people also graze. They abided by that law and opened ranches. There are a lot of Tea people ranches right now, as we speak, in Benue State. But you know, because these people have a different agenda to land grab, and not just land grab, to continue the jihad we started in the early 19th century, in the 1804s, you know, that is the agenda. We know this because they've been saying that. So they came under this excuse of saying there was a clash between them and farmers. There has never been any clash between herders and farmers. The people who were killed in Yerota had never engaged in any form of clash with my cousin, Teru Munzi, who was the APC's agent in last election, in Tinubu's election, in Alias election in Benue, was killed. He has never been involved. He's a very, very amiable young man, with a very beautiful smile, a very peaceful guy who can never hurt a fly. He has never been involved in any clash with the Fulanis. And so, let me tell you another thing. Any Benue man or woman who described that killing, the Fulani killing in Benue State, as farmers' herders clash, is either an accomplice, a traitor, or a betrayer. Because there has never been anything. And yesterday when I saw the statement of the president, I was so disappointed. Because for goodness sake, this is a president who is supposed to unleash the full arm of the law against this insurgent. But here is a president describing that as warring parties. That was what he described us. What war are we fighting? Who are the parties to this war? Where was the center of that war?
Yeah. Okay. Let me ask Professor Okati, because you know it's one of the troubling questions on my mind as well, Prof. This is not the first time, and you would also remember that in that statement that the president put out, he said he's repeating or reiterating an earlier instruction. Perhaps it's a way, a cautious way of saying, let's not, you know, I'm just thinking, let's not just use the sledgehammer yet, Prof. Let's Let's have conversations. Let the government of the day put a stop to this. Even the previous president, when he was visited by Governor Tom at the time, the president told the governor to go settle his problem, whatever the issues are. Perhaps there is some trace of saying, look, there is some information available at some point that the government of the day in Benue State should be able to deal with. For instance, I looked at it right now. The Minister of Defense is a northern. The Minister of State for Defense is a northerner. The Minister of Police Affairs is a northerner. The Minister of State for Police Affairs is a northerner. The National Security Advisor is from the north, and the Minister in charge of Budget and National Planning directly is also from the north. So if these are political challenges, Prof, what then is the issue? Why is it difficult for all interests to have a sit down and deal with this insurgency once and for all?
Well, thank you very much. The question you've asked me is a question I expect that you should ask authorities in power. This is a question that is difficult for me to navigate, but I'll try to provide some context to it. At some point, we all heard all kinds of comments from not just the federal government, but also the state government. And so I am not privy to the type of information that the president had and the chief officer of the country. But all I can say is that the president would always rely on certain security information and briefs from the governor and his security officials in the field. You recall that recently the governor leveled some allegations, and these allegations have been many. At some point, the allegation was on politicians in Abuja, and then at some point again, he leveled allegations on some religious leaders, alleging that they were responsible for the conflict in Benue. And in another breath, he also blamed the people of the state. And so we have had a number of reasons why these attacks are taking place. And so it is possible that the president took a cue from the explanations of the governor to advise or request that there is need for the warring parties, if at all there is anything like that, to sit down and address this problem.
Quickly take a listen to
in my own opinion, like Frank said, there has never been any warring parties because. Yes.
But then let's listen to what the governor said just this morning. Something? Yes, let's listen to what the governor said just this morning. Malcolm referenced it earlier. He was on our sister program earlier this morning. Let's listen to what he has to say about how this whole thing started.
They were not necessarily Nigerians speaking the Hausa we know, or the Fulani we hear bits of. When you come to the axis of Nasarawa, this is where we're having a lot of challenges. There are a number of havens within the Nasarawa state, and there are routes where these people come through. So anytime they are shifted out from Benue, like what you see now is if someone describes it as a reprisal, we wouldn't say no to that. Because I spoke with the governor of Nasarawa trying to see how we can synergize, and if he has any new facts that we don't have here, we can apply them. And what he told us was he got some intel that the terrorists were coming through his state into Benue. And when I told him that, no, the havoc was already caused here at Yelwata in Benue, then he said probably they came, made a touchdown in Yelwata and were going back because he said that one woman was also macheted in Nasarawa state. And then they found their ways out again. So what we have is strangely the fact that the headers had a crisis, the armed headers hijacked it, and then now the bandits and the terrorists have come in completely. And that is the true situation on the ground.
So we just heard, excuse me, from the governor giving an update as to the cause of this crisis. Clearly, he says external influences are involved, and it looks like they're taking advantage of certain divisions that could be present. I don't know if for you, Mr. Otor, listening to what the governor said this morning in furtherance of the explanation of what he believes happened with that crisis is satisfactory for you.
Thanks, Malcolm. If external forces are involved in crisis elsewhere, they are not the ones involved in the crisis in Benue State. Especially in my own place, I can authoritatively say this. They are not the ones involved. We know many of the guys that were recruited from Giza, from Siana, from Ajaragu, from Kadoko to be involved in this fight. Yes, the Fulanis are spread across the Sahel, across 10 countries of West Africa, across 10 states in Nigeria. Yes, in the course of this fight, they may have recruited 1 or 2 mercenaries from some of these places. But this whole carnage is organized by the local Fulanis. The whole of this carnage is organized by these people are not from Jupiter. We know these people. Look, about a month ago, they killed one of my late dad's friends, Ulam, in Yerota there, with his 2 children, and butchered his wife. His wife was taken to, I have not asked if she has survived, was taken to the Benue State University Hospital. When they came, those guys were recruited in Ajaragu, and they were given 30,000 naira for a kill. And so that is why when these guys go, they massacre as much as they can, because there's a fee attached to each killing. That is how we've become so expendable. That is how cheap life is in Nigeria, in Benue. These guys are local Fulanis. They may have 1 or 2 or 3 foreign mercenaries. Yes, they've been doing that over the course of the years. But the whole thing is orchestrated, organized, and executed by local Fulanis. And of course,
well, what I want to know is, Mr. Otor, because you seem to dispute what it is that the governor is saying now, but this has to come to an end. You have had also some, in the process of tracing the root causes of the conflict, not the immediate ones, you also seem to point towards history. For you, how do you, as someone who is directly affected, whose people are directly affected by this carnage, how do you think it will come to an end?
Simple. Firstly, the president, I expected the president to react exactly the way George Bush reacted when 9/11 happened. He didn't. He didn't take the chance to showcase leadership. He was just trying to be politically correct. And many other leaders were just trying to be politically correct. And so we're at the mercy of leaders who have time and again been trying to be politically correct. Now, in order to deal with this matter, we want first and foremost the full execution of the open grazing prohibition law of Benue State. That is a law that is validly passed by the Benue State House of Assembly and settled by the governor. It has been tested by this
the law, that's taken. What else?
That's number 1. Then number 2, we want a complete deployment of our local soldiers who are spread all around the country, back to base, to their home ground, because the soldiers we have here have not been assisting our people. Rather, they were deployed to our areas to help in disarming our boys. So, like the soldiers in Yerota did not react when this thing happened. It was the police and the federal highway guys who engaged these terrorists. There was a time in 2022 rather.
Mr. Otor, I wish we had time. I still have to take the point of Professor. So I don't know if there's one more thing you want to add to that. So those two are...
Okay,
yeah.
The last thing I want to add to that is we should adopt the approach used by Governor Suswam during his reign. During his reign, Governor Suswam was able to empower our youth and the youth of all these flashpoints with repellent devices. And of course, in those days, these people do not come close. We are a nation of warriors. But in subsequent administration, our youth have been disarmed. And so these guys get also cheaply. These guys can't face our youth when it comes to real combat. And so we really want that some approach to be adopted, because during his time, these things weren't happening. Because we're safeguarding our villages, we're safeguarding our communities.
Okay, your point is taken on board, Professor Patrick Ukase. Let me come to you very quickly as to what you think needs to be done, to help put an end to this crisis.
I have about 2 or 3 points to make. One, the full implementation of the open grazing law. Secondly, the state government recently, about 6-7 months ago, launched its own security outfit, which is called Anyamyo. That security outfit should be fully activated to carry out its functions of protecting citizens in the state. The federal government needs to also be very, very decisive in handling this issue through the military and the police. I also want to make the point about state police. That conversation on state police, which at some point became very, very rife, has suddenly gone into the cooler. I would expect that at this point, that process should be activated so that people in state police can come on stream and people can be able, within their respective spaces, to defend themselves. Finally, the governor urged 2 weeks ago that and he promised to release the names of them. We are waiting anxiously to see if there are some accomplices within the state that are responsible for this crisis. I think some of these interventions are critical in resolving the security challenges that we face in Benue.
And we have to thank you both for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Once again, our deepest condolences to the people of Yelwata and by extension to Benue as well. We'll do our best to keep this matter on the front burner and seek updates as needed. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Professor Patrick Ukase of the Department of History and International Studies, Prince Abubakar Audu University in Anyigba in Kogi State, and also Mr. Frank Otor, who is a policy researcher at the University of Central Oklahoma in the United States, and Yelwata Indigene. Thank you so much for speaking with us this morning on Sunrise Daily.